Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem, wa Mabruk for all those people who've reached, mashallah, into the last 10 days of Ramadan. SubhanAllah, how the time flies so fast. People are waiting for Ramadan to come, then you prepare for it and you get into the system of Ramadan. And now in the last 10 days. And as the nature of the topic, success, I hope everyone is successful in Ramadan. And that success is often said that you continue the good habits that you've picked up during Ramadan, post Ramadan. So I wish everyone success in the last 10 days, and I hope I tamanna from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that everyone is able to achieve the night of Qadr, Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, the night that's worth more than 1,000 months or 80 years of worship. So it's a very important night, the night that the Quran was revealed, and we all look for that night. And we all know the hadiths about it in the last 10 days, in the odd nights. But you want to be successful, then you focus on all the 10 nights. Try as best as you can for all the 10 nights. You never know which night it'll land on and which night you'll be successful. So once again, thank you for the audience. I know the people listened in last week, and I'm just going to do a bit of a recap. Maybe there's some new listeners today. The 7 pillars of success. What is success? Especially from the perspective of Islam and Muslims. Many people search for success in many different ways. Success can be the small things, getting up to go to Salat al-Fajr, fasting Ramadan. These are all successes. Helping your family, your parents, these are education. This is all success. But then what is ultimate success? All these small successes should lead us somewhere. So what is that somewhere? What is ultimate success? So as I mentioned last week to the audience, I've spent about 2 years doing some research on what is the success from the perspective of Islam and Muslims. Can we create a simple framework that people could follow that covers all facets of life, from education to your social well-being, to the environment, to your community, parents, your religion? It covers everything. And that you follow these 7 pillars, and hopefully they will take you to success. And I talked a bit about the context. What are the contexts we're challenged with today as Muslims? If we focus here in the UK, those of us who have been brought up in the UK, we're not brought up in an Islamic environment where the education system develops the character of the individual around Islam, or around the physical well-being, the mental well-being, and the spiritual well-being. So there's a void. So we follow the norm of the country. So we follow the norm of the country. And sorry, that was a phone call that came in. Apologize for that. So we follow the norm, and those norms quite often they contradict the things that we learned at home. So we learn this is halal, and we go outside and find something which is the opposite. It could be relationships, it could be food, it could be customs, it could be business. So many things contradict our upbringing. And our upbringing is mostly through our parents, the wider community, the mosques. So we learn our Islam from there. So I talked about last week about 2 individuals that I've come across in the past. One was Abdullah, 24-year-old Muslim, been in trouble with the law, drug problems, and a young girl, 22 years old, Salima, left home, ended up in a relationship from a non-Muslim individual. Parents were devastated. And there's many people like that in the community. And the question we ask ourselves, how did they get there? If we go back 16 years ago in their life, when they were 8 and 9 years old, their parents were teaching them, the du'as, the do namaz, do prayers, this is halal, this is haram. So what went wrong? Without any choice, parents have to send them out to the wider world. So they have to go into the education system. They have to intermingle with the community. We are here in the UK, so we've got to do that. But the parents themselves also, as Muslims, one family was a business family, very focused on the business, very successful, but at what expense? their own Islamic well-being, the children's well-being. Mothers looking after the household, bringing up their children again, sometimes not focused on these things. And all of a sudden, they see their children years and years on, they've changed. And that's because we didn't maybe put in the right amount of effort required to bring the children up. Now, any other walk of life, we take our education, we spend 10 years from, going into reception right through to you finish your GCSEs of learning topics, English, maths, subjects, history, geography, 10 years, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Do we put in the same effort when we develop our iman or our faith? In the business world, people spend 10 hours a day, 8 hours a day, or at work, 5 days a week, 11 months of the year on being as best they can in their profession or in their career. Do we put in the same effort when it comes to our iman and our religion? So then you can understand why people go astray. If we're not focused on what are success factors for our children, for ourselves, how do you get a balance between life and life demands and our spiritual needs and our spiritual demands? How do you get that balance of creating success in this life and success preparing for the life hereafter? So that's what led me down to the 7 pillars. I've seen these situations, and many of you will probably understand these situations in the community. It happens everywhere in the UK and across the parts of the world. People go off track, but there's always a scope to get back on track. As long as we're alive and living, there's always scope to come back. Allah's the most merciful, the most generous, and He's often forgiving. So Allah wants people to come back, as long as we work towards that. So that was a bit of the context about the 7 pillars. Then how the 7 pillars are delivered. They're delivered actually in an interactive, practical workshop. So they're designed looking at the context, the situation that we live in within today. So we take context. That's very important. It's got to be relevant to today, relevant to the situations. Then the program's designed to be simple. Not lectures, but practical, interactive discussions, debates, videos, various contexts, interactive exercises. And then the third part, the program needs to be actionable. People need to walk away from the program, then start applying what these 7 pillars as a vehicle in their day-to-day life. What is that framework I follow that helps me get a balance between the demands of life and the demands of my religious obligations? And the program's developed, it's delivered in a workshop format, 20 individuals together, similar backgrounds, obviously all Muslims, but maybe different ethnic backgrounds, that will bring to the table their own individual issues. And the program is non-judgmental. You may have someone on the program that one area is very, very good. Let's say it's around Quran. They're very good on the Quran. But another area of the program, let's say it's around well-being, they're not doing as well. They're not as healthy, they're not fit, they're getting social or sometimes depressed. And for them, that's where they want to focus on. So the program is individually orientated, just non-judgmental. Anyone can be on the program. As long as you're a Muslim, you've said Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, you can be on the program. But contextual, some people are maybe looking for purpose in life, maybe want to be the best version of themselves. The good Muslims want to even be better. Now, I gave the metaphor the other week like an athlete. An athlete wants to be the ultimate best in themselves. So to win the 100 meters in the Olympics, you've got to be the best in the world. And they put in 8 hours a day training to be their best, the ultimate version of themselves. Can we be the ultimate version of ourselves as Muslims? So when we face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, we can say we did everything possible to be the best version of ourselves. So that's one type of individual. Another may be someone who is not feeling contentment or satisfaction or motivation. They've done everything in life. The wealthy, the well-educated, they've got a senior position in an organization, or they've got lots of friends, but it's just not filling that inner need. So that might be the type of person who wants to be on the program. Someone, again, who's very successful in career, but maybe at the expense of their religious duties or their family, they're not getting a balance. They want to work out that, what is that work-life balance? They want to avoid the burnout where they come to a stage in their life where it's just too much for them. So they're different individual parents, children. So the program's also, there's a spin-off of the program which we've designed also for children, especially around the 12 to 14-year-old, because they're the ones who are confronted with moving from not being accountable to being accountable. And that program's designed around the context of their life as well, because they're a similar cohort. So, for example, decision making at schools, decision making in relationships in the schools or outside the wider community, their well-being, dealing with Islamophobia, bullying, exclusion. So they're the type of things that they're challenged with. So the program focuses around those issues for these individuals. How can they get a balance at that age, 12 to 14? You give them the right skill sets that helps them develop throughout their life. So that's the other part of the program. So there's obviously the adult cohort, which is open to anybody, and there's a cohort aimed for children. The program's delivered over a 2-day period, 2 to 3 days would be maximum. As I said, in a workshop setting, nice environment, helps people to focus and get the best out of the program. And then post the program, they end up with a development plan, because this is a learning development program. I've identified the areas I want to focus on. And the question is now, how do I do that? Remember, actionable. So we went from context to being simple program to being actionable. So post-program, they'll go away and work on these things they want to develop themselves. Because this is a journey. Success won't come overnight. You've got to put in like the athlete, you've got to put in the effort and the energy to get there. And then there'll be some follow-up. I myself or others will follow up on the individuals on their development plan and say, how did it work? How are you getting on? Can you add more to it? Do you need to refocus? Because people get distracted. That's natural. So that's the structure of the program. So that's a bit of a recap where I sort of finished last week. So today I wanted just to maybe indulge a bit of, so what are those 7 pillars? What are the fundamentals of this framework that you follow that would help you through life? Now, we all know of the 5 pillars of Islam, from the Shaher all the way through to the Hajj. Then there's the 6 pillars of faith, the belief in Allah, all the way through to the preordainment, qadr or qadr. So the 7 pillars have to be developed, which is consistent with these 2 other groups of pillars. So it takes from them, because we don't add to the religion, because the religion's already been perfected. Allah perfected the religion. But it's just bringing it forward in a way that people can follow in a more simple format, because there's so much information out there. And this is one of the things that led me to developing this program. Islam is a deen of ease. It's an easy religion. The challenge is this, it's becoming more just confusing, because there's so much out there. What do you follow? What do you don't follow? The platforms, there's so many platforms out there confuse people. There's a lot of lectures that go on, and lectures are very good. They're useful, but sometimes people need something a bit more practical. So this program is designed to be practical. And the question you ask yourself is, why do some people go from one element and don't go to the next? So they say, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. So they become Muslims, but sometimes they don't pray, or pray only occasionally, or they pray, but they don't fast. So what stops them? What stops people going from being on the levels of faith? There's 3 levels of faith, from the Muslim right up to the ihsan, to the excellence, the highest level, those who worship Allah as if they can see Him. If they can't see Him, then Allah sees them. And that ihsan, the highest level of iman, happens to all of us who are fasting. If you consider that someone's fasting, you're in a room by yourself, no one sees you, especially with younger children, and they don't go and take a drink of water, they don't get a bite of food. Why not? Because they feel that Allah is seeing them. So that is ihsan, that you worship Allah as if He can see you. Now the idea is, if you can get ihsan in all walks of your life, in everything you do, is Allah sees you. And this program is structured about that. You can take your level from the beginning level right to the highest level. So I indulged over my research over the 2 years to identify, why is it that some people don't go from one level to the next level? What stops them? And in the programs, we focus first on the foundation, and that's clarifying purpose, and what is success. First, we have to understand purpose. What is our purpose? If you don't have a purpose or an objective, it's very hard to identify what is success. So that's an issue. So the ideas in the program will cover that. And if we know as Muslims, our purpose is Allah said, وَمَا خَلَقَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا يَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create a man or jinn except to worship me. So our role here in this life is to worship. But what is worship is the question. What is ibadah? Is it only Islamic rituals, prayer, fasting? They are pillars, but they're not what is complete ibadah. Our whole way of life is ibadah. So that clarity needs to be brought into people's life. So we focus on the first part of the program around clarifying purpose, making sure everyone's on the same page. We clarify purpose, it simplifies understanding. That helps people get focused and get a direct line of sight. Once you've agreed on purpose, we move to the next stage. So what is success? Many people have different perspectives of success. But what is then, we change one word, we put one word before that word, which is ultimate success. If we now came to the end of our life and we had one more day on this earth and we knew we were going to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next day, what would we say is success in order to take forward in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our grave, and then on the day of judgment? All the material things of this life, which are important, we need them, may not carry the same weight of success when we're moving forward. So we clarify in the foundation of the program those two concepts, purpose and success. We define them. So I'm just going to go very slowly over the 7 pillars. So what are these 7 pillars that were identified over 2 years of research? Pillar number 1. And pillar number 1 was knowing Allah. One of the problems we have today is that if you're in a place of work and you don't know your manager, you don't know what he expects of you, how he likes people to work or her to work, things you should and shouldn't do, and it's very difficult. So one of the things in the place of work is to know your manager. At home, you need to know your parents, their expectations. You need to know your spouse, their expectations. So a lot of us, we don't know who is Allah. What defines Allah? What's expected of us? So the first pillar, and all the pillars are very practical. They're not intentions, but they're actionable statements. So the first pillar is to know Allah. And that differentiates a lot of people that don't move from the Shahada and maybe practicing their pillars, the prayer. They don't move there because a lot of them don't know Allah. And we have that concept with children. Push children all the time. Prayer. But they're praying to who? You pray to Allah, but who is Allah? So a lot of the times you don't treat our children or even ourselves knowing who is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So in the first pillar is to focus on knowing Allah. And as the definition to knowing Allah, let's just put it up here so I don't make a mistake, is knowing Allah as He deserves to be known, understanding Allah's abilities, powers, attributes, and expectations. So what I sort of found in the research, the most important part was first, if you focus the 7 pillars as a pyramid, at the bottom of that pyramid to move forward to get to the top, at the bottom of the pyramid is know Allah. So the first pillar is about knowing Allah. Knowing Allah as He deserves to be known, understanding Allah's abilities, powers, attributes, and expectations. Expectations from us, who He created, what we expect. So pillar number 1, know Allah. Moving up the pyramid, pillar number 2. So what's pillar number 2? Pillar number 2 is the second part of the Shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. So there is responsibility towards Muhammad Rasulullah. And what is that? So the second pillar is live the Sunnah. And we define it as to aspire living and acting our lives through the teachings and guidance of the Prophet ﷺ as directed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, obey Allah and the Messenger. Pillar 1, know Allah. How do you apply some of our practices? To live the Sunnah. We aspire to live in the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ is a role model. In life, we need role models. And a lot of us have role models, but unfortunately, they're the wrong ones. So you move from pillar 1 in the pyramid to know Allah, to move to the next pillar is to live the Sunnah. To inspire to live our lives according to the Sunnah, to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, as ordered again by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's been ordered, prescribed in the Quran. So the first two pillars. Now moving up the pyramid, where do you move to? Pillar 3. Befriend the Quran. Nurture a close relationship with the Quran through regular recitation, comprehension, and pondering over the message and the guidance. The Quran is a message and guidance. We learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran. So we need to befriend the Quran. The Quran would intercede for us, inshallah, on the Day of Judgment. What better book to stay within the Quran? It's not about just reading the Quran. The Quran is not to be read, but to be recited. The Quran is the reciter. There is so many benefits in the Quran, and in the program we go over the benefits of the Quran, and also the opposite. What is the circumstance of those who abandon the Quran? We should avoid abandoning the Quran. So pillar number 1 is know Allah. Pillar number 2, live the Sunnah. And pillar number 3, befriend the Quran. Nurture a close relationship with the Book of Allah, the message of Allah. In there is guidance. For Muslims, it's our compass. It gives us clear direction. We go off track, we know where to get back on, like a compass. When you want to get to a destination, you use your compass, or today, GPS. That Quran is our compass. So we move from the pillar at the bottom of the pyramid, know Allah. We move up the pyramid, live the Sunnah. Number 3, befriend the Quran. Now, so far, we haven't got to worship. Well, they're all forms of worship, but the actual rituals of worship. So pillar number 4 is worship abundantly. Pillar number 4, worship abundantly. Knowing Allah and our obligations to Allah, which came from pillar 1, necessitates we strive to worship Him abundantly throughout all our endeavors. So ibadah covers everything in our life, from the rituals, which are a given. Any contract you have with an organization, with your employer, you turn up for work, that's a given. You finish work, that's a given. You do your job, that's a given. It's the extra things in there which count. So this worship abundantly is, we cover the concept of, now that you know Allah and what's required of you, how can you worship? Once you've clarified what is ibadah, then how do you abud Allah? How do you worship Allah? So pillar number 4 is worship abundantly, and that covers all facets of life, from your work, from your family, from your obviously obligations, your ritual obligations, to seeking knowledge, and so on and so forth. So it covers all facets and all endeavors of life. So we've gone from pillar 1, know Allah. Pillar 2, live the Sunnah. Pillar number 3, worship abundantly. In that worship abundantly, we'll clarify what is ibadah and the different parts of ibadah. Now we move the ladder further. So now we've gone from a lot of knowledge at the beginning, the first 3 pillars, now into the 4th pillar, which is about ourselves, about worship. Pillar 5, and this is one I played with quite a while, is about relationships. We have a lot of relationships in Islam. Now, should we maintain relationships? Should we enhance relationships? So what is it about relationships? So in the end, it became down to honoring relationships. And the big 3 is obviously Allah, Rasulullah, and our parents. They're the big 3. But then there's all the other relationships. Our spouse, our children, our relatives, our kin, the orphans, our neighbors, our employees, our employer, our societal rulers. How do you honor these relationships? And the definition for that was, with sincerity and understanding, patience and justice, fulfill responsibilities and duties towards others, as prescribed by Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we've got to honor those relationships. It's not just about maintaining them, but it's honoring it. It's not what we do, but it's how we do it. And that how is about sincerity, patience. So if you take an example of someone being obedient to parents. So I have this all the time with my children. I ask my child to do something, oh, Dad, okay, I'll do it. And they go and do it. But the question was, did they do it with passion, with sincerity? And that's the challenge we get as individuals. So honoring relationships is not just about maintaining them, but it's actually fulfilling those duties, and honoring this is as the highest level. So we go over a lot of that, how to honor relationships. The next two, so we've gone from, sorry, to repeat the 5 pillars. Pillar 1 is know Allah. Pillar 2, live the Sunnah. Pillar 3, befriend the Quran. Pillar 4, worship abundantly. And pillar 5 was honor relationships. So remember, these are a vehicle about all facets of life. So what's pillar 6? Now this is one, when I sat with a few of my learned brothers, a few sheikhs, and these are the two that they didn't seem to identify quite easily. So pillar number 6 is pursue well-being. Pursue well-being. Proactively taking care of ourselves physically and mentally to meet the demands of life and our religious obligations. And again, as I said earlier, someone who works a 60-hour week, gets depressed, maybe doesn't go exercise, how could they possibly focus on their religion? When they go to the prayers, their mind is still occupied with the challenges of work, or as a parent with the challenges of the children. And so pursuing well-being is very important for Muslims. If you go to a place of work, they give you the resources or the tools to do your job. So we work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we're His servants. And what's the tools He gave us? He gave us this body. And that's what differentiates us with all the other creatures Allah created subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the brain, our mind. But that mind is only at its best if we look after it. So a lot of people neglect their physical well-being and their mental well-being. Physical, either, as I said, looking after themselves, being healthy, so you can do all the things you need to do in life. Or as a lot of people go through this issue of depression, anxiety, and so on and so forth. And all these pillars, when we go through the program, we get the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah. So I'll show you the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah. What does the Prophet ﷺ say about well-being? What does the Quran say about well-being? So pillar number 6 is making sure we utilize the tool that Allah gave us, our bodies, in order to fulfill life's obligations and religious obligations. So pillar 6, pursue well-being. The last pillar is a very important pillar. So you've gone from the bottom of the pyramid, know your Creator. What does He want from us? How do we do that? Through the Sunnah. Where do we get our moral compass? From the Quran. What are we doing? Our worship, pillar 4. Who do you interact with? Our relationships. Look after our resources, our well-being. And the last pillar is about going beyond just ourselves, about self-satisfaction. And this is one of the things that the Quran tells us. Kunta khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas. You're the best of the people who go out to people. Ja'alnakum ummatan wasat. We made you a middle nation. So our responsibility is to contribute to humanity. So pillar number 7 is contribute to humanity. Now you've developed the knowledge. You've developed the good acts of worship. Now we contribute to humanity. And to define that is to convey the true message of Islam and positively contribute to the evolution of humanity and the world. I know it sounds big, but that's our role as a ummah. And that ummah is created from individuals. So as individuals, if we don't understand our religion, if we don't practice our religion in the best way we possibly can, and again, and the other parts of our day-to-day life, which support, obviously, to be good Muslims. How can we possibly convey the message? How can we contribute to humanity? How can we serve others? So pillar number 7 is about taking all that knowledge, the good acts of worship, and propelling ourselves to a higher level of self-satisfaction through supporting others, helping others. And that contribute to humanity covers many different facets, but the first one is ourselves, is to prevail that true message through our own actions and our own character as Muslims. Support others, help others. And the environment that we live in, Allah gave us this earth as an inheritance for us to look after. Humanity is doing a very bad job of it. We talk about extinction of animals, we talk about pollution. And the Quran tells us about that. And again, in the program, we draw the evidence. So they're the 7 pillars. You've gone from pillar 1 right through to pillar 7. And in the program, we would cover on these topics. If we talk about the foundation, we're talking about success and purpose. We look at our reality, what's going on in our lives, what our priorities are, what are our challenges, what are our enemies. So we cover those in the topics. In the knowing Allah part, it's okay, what are our senses? What are we made up of? Mind, body, soul, and what type of souls do we have? How do you create mindfulness of Allah? How do you develop knowledge of Allah? And what is self-purification? Tazkiyat an-nafs. So that gets covered in the program. In living the Sunnah, the question is then, who is the Prophet ﷺ? Most of us know his name, but who is he? What did he really do? What did he really stand for? What people say about him, Muslims and non-Muslims. What is the Sunnah? Why follow the Sunnah? Why follow him? We have this debate with people who say, well, I follow the Quran and I don't follow the Sunnah. Can we just leave one and the other? And we'll go over that and clarify it. What are the benefits of following the Prophet ﷺ? And how do we learn about the Sunnah? So they're the things we cover in that module. In the third module, befriend the Quran. Again, what is the Quran? A lot of us know of it as a book, but it's beyond a book. It's the last testimony. It's the guidance for mankind. So we need to look at what is the Quran. What's the effects the Quran has on people, Muslims and non-Muslims? Again, why befriend the Quran? What's the importance of befriending the Quran? The benefits of befriending the Quran. And again, as mentioned, what are the consequences from abandoning the Quran? How does it affect us individually? How does it affect society? How does it affect humanity? So again, we cover that on the program. Pillar 4, worship abundantly. We will cover what is worship. Again, it's very important to clarify because people have different concepts of what worship is. What are the conditions of worship? What is it that will be accepted, won't be accepted? What do we need to have in place? What we call in the program is what are the success factors for achieving the 7 pillars? So throughout the program, we talk about success factors. How do you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 24/7? What does that require? How can we possibly worship Allah 24/7? Is there a way to worship Allah 24/7, 365? And we look at the program. The various types of worship. The issue of Iman, the different levels of Iman, how that plays on individuals. Remember, we're looking at to be the best version of ourselves. So how do you get to the highest level of Iman? Tawakkul, what is tawakkul? What's that mean? Putting our reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are the best forms of worship? Are there types of worship which is better than others? Life is all about optimization. How do you optimize and gain? It's like Ramadan. It's the best month of the year. There's certain times of the year which are better. So are there certain types of worship and acts of worship which are better? So we look at that in the program. When we come to honoring relationships, we look at what are key relationships in Islam. And it's very important to know relationships. And we know of the big 3, Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, and our parents. But what are the other relationships? Why does the Quran, why does Islam focus on the issue of parents? There's a big emphasis on parents throughout the Quran, and we all know this in our community. And why is that the case? What are the benefits of honoring relationship with parents, and what's the opposite? We don't honor those relationships with parents. What's the consequences? What's the difference over honoring or fulfilling a relationship? What's the rights of Muslims? What's the rights of other people in society? Our neighbors. We have a lot of neighbors who are non-Muslim. What are their rights, non-Muslims, over us? They have rights too. Relationships beyond just the human sector. What about animals? So we have pets. People, some have farms. What are the entitlements of these animals? So we cover this whole thing about relationships. Pillar number 6, that one which is the extraordinary one, pursue well-being. So what is well-being? How does the Quran define well-being? A lot of us don't even understand today what is well-being. So we clarify what is well-being. What is the benefits of physical and mental well-being? How does it help us get a balanced life? What are the consequences if we don't look after ourselves? What are some of the statistics that are out there that say about the Muslim community, or especially from the Asian subcontinent? Are there certain health issues? Are there some more susceptible to certain illnesses? So we look at that. Do we get enough physical exercise or not? And then this last pillar of contributing to humanity, we will cover conveying the message. What is our responsibility to convey the message of Islam? How do we manage resources that Allah gave us? The resources we have at home, in our society, in our work. How do we manage resources? How do we look at sustaining our world? What's our responsibility? What does the Quran tell us about sustaining our world? Now, before a lot of these things came out today, that organizations, NGOs are looking at the issue of the climate. The Quran already told us a long time ago about this, and we're going to look at that. So, what is sustaining our world, and what is our responsibility? What are the benefits of sustaining our world, and what are the potential punishments for those who don't sustain or do the opposite, pollute and damage the world that we live in? How will that help the generations next? And then the last part, we look at serving others. How do we serve others? How have you gone from knowing Allah, gone to the next level of your worship, and then moving on to serving others? Do we have a goal in life to serve others? Small or big, if we can walk away from the program with a goal, then we'll contribute to humanity. And through these 7 pillars, we get fulfillment. And that fulfillment covers 3 elements. So we group these pillars together. So the first 3 pillars, if you may pick it up yourself, the first 3 pillars of know Allah, live the Sunnah, befriend the Quran, that's the tier in the pyramid called the tier of knowledge. The tier of knowledge. And that's what differentiates a lot of our acts of worship. Do we really have knowledge? So the first tier, the first 3 pillars will come together and they become the tier of knowledge. The second tier on the pyramid, we group together 3 of the pillars, which is worship abundantly, honor relationships, and pursue well-being. And that is the tier of worship. And that's about me. Tier 1 is about Him, the Creator. Tier 1 is about me. I get to know myself. I get to worship better. I get to help others better, and so on and so forth. And that propels you to the last tier, which is tier of giving. So you've gone from know, worship, give. And the top tier is about supporting others, society, the environment, the world. We're the best of nations, as the Quran tells us. We go out and we serve humanity. That's what we're here for. The Prophet ﷺ came as rahmatan al-alameen, a mercy to mankind, not a mercy to Muslims, but a mercy to mankind. So how do we move? So that's the concept of the pillars. But the pillars, when they're grouped, they go for 3 simple processes, 3 simple tiers. Tier of knowledge, which differentiates why people sometimes pray and some people don't. Some people do more than others and some people do less. It's all about knowledge. The Quran tells us, هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ? Are those equal, those who know and those who don't know? Knowledge, knowledge, knowledge is the fundamental cornerstone of Islam. The cornerstone of humanity, knowledge. The first verses that were revealed in this blessed month to an illiterate man, the Prophet ﷺ, was Iqra, read. It is the Furqan, the divider, the differentiate knowledge. So the first part of the program focuses on knowledge. Those three come together: know Allah, live the Sunnah, and befriend the Quran. Is about knowledge. So a lot of that knowledge, if we put in place, would help our children worship better, be better individuals, be better citizens. Knowledge. And not knowledge just of this dunya. Knowledge of this dunya is very important. You need knowledge of this dunya to be an engineer, to be a doctor, to be a business person. You need it. But not at the expense of the knowledge, the greater knowledge of the together. They work hand in hand. Be a successful individual at work, in career, business, education, and whatever walk of life you take on. But also be successful in your religion. Convey that message in the end. And it is that knowledge that really is the factor. Doing my research, I've identified a lot of individuals that don't move into the level because they lack the knowledge. We spend so much time on development. Some people spend a lifetime of learning. You know, by the time you get a PhD, you may have spent 20 years studying. But when it comes to religion, 20 days, if you put it all together, accumulated, 20 months, even less. So knowledge, once you have that true knowledge, propels you to worshiping correctly. You cannot but move to the next level. Without the knowledge, the next level becomes hard. So that knowledge pushes you to the next level of true worship. Worshipping with a passion to worship. Now you often know that, for example, with our children, if they want to pray or don't want to pray, do they get up themselves and pray? Or do you have to tell them to get up and pray? Do you have to ask them to do a task? Or do they do the task without you asking? So we want to be in a situation where ourselves and our children get up to do that act of worship. And that act of worship will come from having the true knowledge first, which propels you and pushes you to do that, to fulfill that act of worship. But once you've got that, do we stop there? So if I took the first 6 pillars and you were very healthy, you knew Quran well inside out, you were very generous in acts of worship, you look after your parents, but then you don't give. Have you really become the best version of yourself? And the Quran tells us, لا تناولوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. You will never reach true piety unless you give from what you love. And that give is either wealth, if you have it, time, knowledge, support. And we get that, we sometimes see that in our communities. Some people are very, very wealthy and they give a lot, or they're always in the mosque, they're always reading the Quran, but you never see them supporting others or giving. So at the top of the pyramid, once you've gone through all this, generating the knowledge, transforms you into acting, fulfilling your acts of worship, then propels you to do more. You know, if we look at the days of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they were united as a people, but they used to be ruhama ma bainahum, merciful amongst themselves, looking after each other, what's going on. If someone was missing for a couple of days, they would check what's happened to the individuals. They would give to the others before they give to themselves. So for them, it was give. They had the knowledge, they had the worship, and then they gave. And the Quran, Allah recognized that. وَرَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوَ. Allah was pleased with them and accepted them for their acts. Even though some of them were informed they're going to enter paradise, and mubashirin for Jannah. So it wasn't just about learning and being a good Muslim, but also being a good human, helping others within your own community and beyond your own community. So we have a responsibility to share this beautiful religion, the religion of success, the religion that Allah's accepted for humanity from now to the Day of Judgment. But are we doing the right thing, presenting the picture that we should be presenting? Are we conveying that message? Some of the best ways to convey the message is being a good Muslim, through our acts, the things we do and how we interact with others. Can we help society, help other people? So they're the 7 pillars. And there's a bonus in the 7 pillars, in that we move the 7 pillars from 7 pillars to 3 tiers. Remember, you group them: knowledge, then worship, then give. But can we actually create one formula? Just one formula. A simple mathematical formula that defines successful Muslims. That you'll find out in the program. So if you want to find out more about the program, please send an email. You can go on the website. It's a temporary website. There is an interest form on there. If you submit your interests, if we get enough people for the area, we'll develop the program in Newcastle. We're going to launch the program hopefully in June in Middlesbrough. You can join the program in Middlesbrough. I said probably over a weekend, 2 days. Then maybe an extra half day. Might need 2.5 days. Trying to manage with people's times. But we don't want to also cut the program down too short where people don't get the benefit. We're back to square one. We need to get over that. So if you have an interest in the program, want to know more about the program, please send me an email through the website and I'll get in touch. Or you can send something through Fast FM. Send them some feedback and I'll get in touch. But that's generally the program, the 7 pillars of success, going from knowing Allah, live the Sunnah, befriend the Quran, worship abundantly, honor relationships, pursue well-being, contribute to humanity. Those 7 pillars become 3 tiers on a pyramid. The tier of knowledge, knowing Allah, knowing our religion. The tier of worship is about me, how do I worship? And tier 3, how do I contribute to humanity and society? Through giving. Like this blessed month, we give. Let's see if we can give throughout our lives, not just in the month of Ramadan. Can really present the true image of Islam. Ramadan is a blessed month. We focus on it solidly for 30 days, 29 to 30 days. Worship, giving. We are the best version of ourselves in Ramadan. How can we be the best version of ourselves for the rest of our lives? How can we face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I've done everything possible to be the best version of myself? How can Ramadan stretch across the acts of Ramadan stretch our whole lives? Through knowledge, through worship, and through giving. Throughout our lives, the 7 pillars of success. That's where I conclude. Your brother Ali Shaher, based here in Middlesbrough. I wish you an Eid Mubarak if I don't see you again. And I hope you are successful throughout Ramadan. And you continue being successful after Ramadan. And you join the 7 pillars of success to be successful the rest of your life. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.